Hello, and welcome everyone to a new Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era video. In this one, we're going to be stocking heroes. So, I feel like I've already played enough and gotten to know the heroes well enough in order to rate them on, F to S basis. The regular good old tier list. We're going to be talking through the heroes, what they do good, what they do bad, and yeah, we are going to be rating them. So let's get right into it. For the first one, we are going to be doing dungeon heroes, and we're going to be starting off with Creta. So Creta is a hero that is not very interesting. She starts off with economics, and she gets more gems to the kingdom as her special theme. She doesn't really do anything interesting. She is a very bad hero, and I don't really think that she has like almost any use cases whatsoever. Next up is my favorite hero, Devir. So this monster of a hero starts off with 2 stacks of Minotaurs immediately in the game. So he can have like 10 Minotaurs immediately upon spawning. And also he specializes in them, giving them more growth, more HP, initiative, like all that good specialty in a jazz. He is so good that he is banned most of the time, so even though, you're not going to be able to play him that often, but in all templates, except for like Vendetta or something, he's gonna be like a really good, strong option. He is one of my favorites, the god Devir. Next up is Inati. So Inati is pretty damn good, okay? So she's a Medusa specialist, and Medusas in Olden Era dungeon are actually pretty damn good. She also starts with a stack of Medusas, which is cool. However, she loses the tier 2 army start, tier 3 army start, and only has like one little small stack of Medusas to start the game off with, which actually doesn't really feel like a lot of army whatsoever. So you're not really starting with like a big army boost, it's just like a slight army deviation. That's how it feels like, which is a little bit unfortunate. She also starts with Armorer, defense as a secondary skill, which is also really good. And for all of these reasons, she deserves a high A tier in my opinion. She just doesn't have enough starting army in order to be godlike. Next up is Glastor. So Glastor is the economic specialist Dion, and he brings a lot of money to the kingdom. The only person that I've ever seen play this was Ordlops. And Ordlops is, like a top level player, probably at least like tied with the best in Olden Era currently. And, yeah, he used it in order to like abuse artifact merchants. He wanted to have like a lot of money, and he also wanted to go for the economic secondary, where he gets to like buy items cheaper and sell items for more. So using that sub-skill, he can fish for item sets better, and item sets are really good. So because of Ordlops, he's gonna be avoiding the F tier and barely scraping by into the C tier, in my opinion. I wouldn't really recommend anyone picking him unless you really know what you're doing. Next up is the Arcane Magic Specialist, Gleard the Grey. He starts off with Temporal Spheres, which is a pretty strong spell, and then he also has Arcane Magic and Arcane Magic levels. So far, the traps are pretty damn good. However, they're not like game-breaking on their own. They're usually like a very good supplement for like other things, like you're already like strong, you have an army, you already have like something going on, and then traps will be like a nice addition to that entire setup. I don't think traps on their own are gonna be like that great. However, as like a magic specialist, preventing the opponent from using arcane, starting off with like a really good spell, I feel like there's actually room to experiment with his hero. So in my opinion, he is going to be B tier. Next up is Keller. This is a bad time for Keller, okay? Keller used to be insta-ban in every single format that the game has to offer. He is the learning dude, so he gets more XP, he starts off with insight, and then he also gets more stats for level ups. 1 more stat for every 2 level ups, which is really good. You just level them up easier, and when you're leveling up, you're getting more benefits from those level ups. However, one of the key parts that made Keller really good is the fact that he started with insight, and the fact that insight had like a really broken secondary skill, which was Civic Innovation. In the latest patch, the Civic Innovation went from 100% extra law points from a hero down to 30%. Basically, the entire sub-skill got gutted, gutting the entire skill in the process, so now Insight is not really good anymore. I still think he's decent, however, he is really like a shell of himself. So from absolute top of S tier down to low A tier, he goes after the recent patch. Next up is probably the hero that I played the most, and probably one of the most fun heroes for me to play, Kieran. He is the Troglodyte specialist, so when you start with him, you're going to be getting 3 stacked Troglodytes, making for a really strong, big army. He also starts off with tactics that have really good synergy with Minotaurs. So the game plan is like pretty simple. You start off with a bunch of Troglodytes that are able to take like really good fights. After you take the Troglodyte Lord, they're like really good. On Kieran, they're super fast, very effective at dealing with many things. However, you have to be like really good at fight taking because Troglodytes are pretty easy to bleed, so you have to be crafty. Sometimes you have to like split them in 2 stacks. You have to know when to do so. You have to like know how to kite. You know, you have to be pretty damn good at fight taking in order to use him properly. However, when you do, he's really good. He's applicable to like most formats that are, you know, on the current ladder pool. I would say he is lower S tier. However, I would advise caution. You will probably lose your first few games, as I did. I had to like play like 10 games, and then, you know, like when I started getting it, it was like one of the most rewarding things in the game. Getting good with Kieran is just like, you know, like, yes, my Troglodytes are assassinating things sneakily. I split them into 2 stacks. I take the Troglodyte Law. They're suddenly like one-shotting things, so I can like wait on everything. I have like Giga Initiative. Then I can kill like 4 stacks, you know, like 2 at the end of the turn, 2 at the beginning of the turn. Then I split the fight in order to, you know, like not take a single hit. It's like amazing. However, pretty difficult. Next up is Lodos. So Lodos is interesting hero. He's the Nightshade specialist. He starts off with Sleep, which is not really a spell that you want to have in the early game. So you're going to be having to build your own mage guild, probably research into Despair in order to have like some good Nightshade spell to play with. However, when you do get that Nightshade big Despair, and then you also have, you know, like some things that are susceptible to Despair, then, you know, like he can clear like no other. However, I feel like there's like too many ifs and maybes when it comes to playing Lodos. So despite his like, you know, like super high roll being like really good, I feel like he is way too inconsistent in order to be, you know, like a very, you know, persistent force. I would... Man, putting him next to Gleard is like pretty bad. I would put him low A tier. Next up is Motley. So Motley is the Onyx Dancer specialist that starts off with Twilight in her spellbook. Pretty important, as Twilight is one of the better spells in the entire game, and getting access to the specific tier 3 Nightshade spell is usually not easy, but when you're playing Motley, you immediately get that. Not to mention, your Onyx Dancers, which usually carry your dungeon early game on anyone but Devir or Kieran, are also quite a bit better, and you also get more of them. You start off with 2 Onyx Dancer stacks, which is very impressive. So... However, like she starts with recruitment, which is not a skill that's like super useful in many of the templates. I still like her. I will put her like A tier. Sometimes whenever I just want to go pew pew with some Onyx Dancers, I'm going to be picking up Motley, and she's going to do like a pretty fine job. Next up is Morin. Morin is the Infiltrator specialist. I feel like infiltrators are not a very reliable, consistent stack. So she is decent, but not good. The biggest problem is that she starts off with the scouting, so secondary skill. And scouting as a secondary skill is pretty niche in the current Olden era climate. You want scouting in mid to late game Vendetta. You maybe want it on Blitz sometimes, like a little bit later on as well. So, you know, because of like the secondary skill, she doesn't really have like that much of a good start. And also infiltrators feel like very susceptible to bleeding. You know, like you get morale on them once and then your stack is like so low that it's kind of hard to like get things done on them. So for these reasons, she is a little bit overlooked compared to some of the other heroes. Next up is Rhea. Rhea is the luck specialist. So she gets more luck odds for every single bit of luck that you have. 2% by default, and then scale some more with levels. Playing intellect doesn't really like feel that great because, you know, like sometimes dealing a lot of damage and like trying to play around that is like kind of a struggle. You know, you want to be consistently knowing what you're doing. You know, like if you have to like attack into like many dragons, you need to kind of know whether you're gonna be killing them or not, because if you don't kill them, you get retailed on and then you lose your army. And you know, like taking fight after fight where you don't really know if you're gonna be getting retaliated on or whether your luck will proc is just like not really like a good setup. So Rhea, and despite having like pretty good potential, I don't think is gonna be that great in the way that the game currently is. Next up is we have Sister Deira. Sister Deira is also just like not very impressive hero. Man, I looked for the heroes again, but I can't remember for the life of me which it does. I'm just gonna alt tab into Olden Era. What does she do again? I am sorry. Masterful Arena's Touch and Thaumaturgy. Okay, well, she is not impressive whatsoever. So from my experience, Arena's Touch is only good as a spell that for abuse. Okay, so for example, Ordlobs has recently enlightened me to another version of Arena's Touch abuse. So if you get like super good Arena's Touch and super good Distortion alongside a little bit of duration and cast those spells together in a single turn using Thaumaturgy, of course, then you can actually make another invertible stack that will just literally ignore damage, and then you can equip Chain Link in order to ignore Wean, pretty much the only counter to the strategy, and then you suddenly make something immortal. I feel like this is kind of like an abusive strategy. That if given more relevance would probably get gutted in one way or another, because it doesn't really like feel fair to play against. So yeah, I'm not impressed by the spell, and also starting off with Thaumaturgy is not really something that you want because you don't really have like that many spells or mana to play with in the early phase. So I would say that she is a really bad hero. C tier. Next up is Stinger. So Stinger is the Heroic Strike Specialist. Her Heroic Strikes have an extra effect that will be applying a damage over time. This damage over time doesn't really like feel that significant. However, being a Heroic Strike Specialist starting off with combat makes her really strong at fight taking. And honestly, she just feels super good to play. She's basically my main pick in many formats, especially when Devir and Kieran are banned, and she always does like a consistent good job. She enables you to take fights early, consistently, and a lot, because you know, like going into heroic striking things does not really cost like any resources, so she's always like super reliable, super good, one of my favorite dungeon heroes, and I've had my best dungeon games on her. And she's also like super versatile because you're not really locked into any sort of strategy. Whenever you like see like some sort of a dwelling in your Exodus biome, you can actually react to that and play that sort of style. I played everything on her from monitors to Medusas to Hydras to dragons. She can do anything. She's super versatile. Amazing hero. Next up is Sunny Rauktol. So Sunny Rauktol is the Daylight Specialist. So she gets like a lot of Daylight spell levels and starts off with Daylight. So she's going to be able to like Masterful Bless like very early in the game. If you get your hands on some of the better spells like Radiant Armor and Inner Light, you're going to be basically able to secure level 4 of those really good spells very easily. I would say that it's like a little bit too slow, you know? Playing for that, in my opinion, is just like not really a very strong option compared with like some of the other options. So I would say B tier. The only time that I've seen this hero being played was when Taunt abuse was like still relevant. So you wanted to like rush out Taunt, then you wanted to get like Daylight levels in order for that Taunt to be like lasting a long time. And then you could like make your little wall, make the taunted unit, and then, you know, like Rauktol enabled like that strategy to be online a little bit faster than other heroes did. But like apart from that, I don't really like see this hero played that much. I would put her like here exactly, mid B tier. Next up is Stellaris. So Stellaris starts off with Battlecraft, which is actually like a pretty important and good skill. Though I really hated having it, especially in the early phase. I really want to pick it up like mid to late game. And she also has the Masterful Early start spell, which cannot be dispelled. It's not really that important. And yeah, I feel like she's lacking as a hero. She doesn't really like do a lot. I don't like her whatsoever. But because she's an overlord that starts with a good spell and also starts with a good skill, she cannot be that low just based on those things. So honestly, I'm high B tier. Next up is Typhona. Typhona is one of the most oppressive heroes in the game. She is the best warlock out there. She starts with a ridiculous army of 2 Hydras that recently got buffed as well. And then she doesn't start with any secondary skills, so that means that whatever skill that you want to like pick up in the early phase that you level up into, whether that's going to be like armor, sorcery, logistics, if you get that in the early phase, it's like insane. You can get that to expert immediately, or avatar, of course. Avatar is like super good on her. Yeah. She clears the map like no other. She gets like more benefits for clearing the map because she's the Hydra specialist. So, you know, like you build a dwelling, she immediately has an army that's gonna be like super tanky. She is great. I haven't gotten to play her like that much or do great things with her. However, the like Rauktol, who's currently above me on the ladder and in skill, you know, like uses her and makes you know, like some ridiculously strong setups. I would put her, yeah, super S tier. And also she is always banned anyway, so who cares though. Next up is Ilwari. What does Ilwari do again? Oh yeah, flee. Yeah, no wonder I don't remember that. Nobody cares. Not a hero type of hero, and probably even like outside of that, it's probably not really that great anyway. Next up is Zachron. So Zachron is awesome. He is the sorcery specialist, so he gets a lot of magic damage, and it's pretty easy to use him on dungeon, especially because he starts off with Triumvirate. So he gets like baseline power just for being from him to Triumvirate. You also have like the sub skill on dungeon. Whenever you select a stance, you get temporary mana, so he has like some built-in mana sustain, and then he deals like a bunch of damage with spells. He feels actually really good to play, and in some formats he can give you like enough tempo to just like roll over the map. And then he also scales pretty well because your damage spells are going to be increasing in value with every level, of course. He also recently got buffed, and his scaling is now twice as fast as it was before, so he's amazing. I'm actually going to be putting him above Inati. Based on my experience, I've gotten like actually way better game with Zachron than I have with Inati. Though it's gonna be like very format dependent. On a Vendetta, I would say Zachron can probably like do better things, maybe on Blitzsteel than Inati. On Exodus, I would probably prefer Inati to Zachron, but still though, I respect this hero more, and I feel like he's awesome, you know? So for that reason alone, he's going into S tier. So yeah, that is our Dungeon Hero roster. Because Dungeon has like a lot of amazing heroes, you know, like I would say 5 S tier heroes, it's always impossible to fully ban out a Dungeon player, and that's why the faction actually feels like pretty good. You'll always be left behind with like hero that feels like really strong and really good to play. So yeah, I thank you all for watching. We're going to be tiering all of the factions as heroes, 1 faction per day, and I'll see you in the next one. You know, if you like these kind of videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and catch me live on twitch.tv/Lekshav. Till next.